Welcome to Mari's Show. I'm here with the CEO of Mari's Show, and she's going to be taking me on an adventure on baking. I'm not a professional baker, but at times I always love to bake. But then when I enter the kitchen, what I picture in my head doesn't come out as planned. Maris is going to be here to put me through the process on how to bake. And I have a few questions I'm going to be asking her. First question is, why does butter and egg have to be at room temperature while baking?
It is very necessary that butter and egg be in room temperature, because that will help them to blend together. That will help your batter to blend together when making cake, especially when making cake. Your butter and egg should be in room temperature. That will make the batter to blend properly. That will make the batter to emulsify easily. That will make the batter to trap in more air. That will lead to a fluffy and a very creamy cake. That is why it's very necessary that when you bring out your butter and your egg from the fridge, it's very, very important that you keep it for like 2 hours on the counter at room temperature, you understand? After 2 hours, you can use it, because when you go directly to use it, that will make your batter to be curdled and result in a very dense cake. So it's very, very important when you use room temperature butter and egg to trap in more air, and it will emulsify, make the batter to be emulsified, and that will lead to a fluffy cake. So that's it.
Okay, I think I'm finally understanding. So I want to know, what's the difference between baking powder and baking soda?
Baking soda is a single ingredient called sodium bicarbonate. In baking, it requires, especially when baking cake, it requires an acid to react. It needs to react with an acid to rise. But baking powder, on the other hand, is a complete leavening agent that already contains baking soda as a base and also acid. So what baking powder just needs when used with other ingredients in baking cake is just heat and moisture. But baking soda, on the other hand, needs to react with acid so as to rise. It needs to react with an acidic ingredient like buttermilk, like vinegar, white vinegar, like lemon to rise. So you see the difference between the two. Baking powder can be used when a recipe calls for baking soda. Just know that, just be rest assured that you are going to use an acidic ingredient, either buttermilk, either lemon, either vinegar. But when a recipe calls for baking powder, baking powder is a leavening agent. It's just a resin agent on its own that contains baking soda as the base and also acid. So that's just the difference.
So I want to know, does the type of vanilla make a difference in the final products? Because it seems like when I go to a shop and I get a cake, the taste is different from the one I make at home, and I'm confused because like I use same vanilla. So like, what am I getting wrong?
The answer is yes. The type of vanilla matters. Like me, when making cake, I don't joke with my flavors, especially vanilla. I'm very particular about the vanilla I use. We have a vanilla flavor I use, we have a vanilla bean paste. That one is not that popular in this part of the country, not popular in Nigeria here. Then we have vanilla extract. Then we have vanilla essence, the imitation. I call it the imitation. The difference is that vanilla bean and vanilla extract, this is vanilla extract. Vanilla bean and vanilla extract brings out more intense flavor. By the way, this is not a sponsored ad. Vanilla extract and vanilla bean brings out more intense flavor and taste. That is why you see that whenever you bake at home, the taste is not like the one you buy in cake shops or any eatery where they sell cake, because those ones I'm sure they use vanilla extract. So vanilla extract brings out more intense flavor than vanilla essence. Vanilla essence is just there. So anytime, I always advise people, whenever you want to bake cake and that cake is for a customer, not the one you eat at home, you go for vanilla extract or vanilla bean, vanilla paste, so as to bring out more intense flavor and taste. Try it and you will see. You will come back and tell me.
So I've been wanting to ask,
Okay.
what happens if you don't measure baking ingredients carefully?
Baking is a science to me. To me again, baking is like chemistry. The only thing is just that the end product we eat. When baking, I always advise people to use measuring scale. I prefer measuring scale to cups. I don't use cups. Because what will happen when your measurements are inaccurate is that the final product will be a disaster, which will definitely affect the taste of your product, like cake, affect the taste of a cake. Maybe the cake will just be bland. It's either the flour that you measure is even more than the ingredients. It's not even in ratio with the ingredients. You understand? So it will definitely lead to a bland cake or maybe a dense cake. It will definitely affect appearance of the cake. It will affect the texture of the cake. It will affect the taste of the cake. So it's very important, very, very important that I use measuring scale. I don't use cup. Cup is not accurate. I used to say cup is not accurate. Cup leads to inaccurate measurements. So I prefer using scale. If you use scale, your ingredients will be perfect. Everything will come out nice. But if you don't use scale, you use cup, the end product will not be. You can't compare somebody that is, you are doing the same, you are doing the same recipe, making the same recipe, following the same recipe, and one person is using cup, and you are using measuring cup, and you are using measuring scale. You can't, the end product will not be the same. That person's soul will be, the one using measuring scale will definitely be fluffier, will come out, the taste will be different, the texture will be different, the appearance will be different. So that's just it. So I advise you use measuring scale.
So I wanted to ask, what happens if you remove baking powder out of the ingredients while baking? Like, does it really matter?
When a recipe calls for baking powder, you know baking powder is a leavening agent.
Yeah.
When a recipe calls for baking powder, you have to use it. It's very, very important. And when a situation whereby you don't use baking powder, it will definitely lead to a disaster. It's either it leads to a very dense, and a very hard. Whatsoever you are baking will be hard, will be dense. So when a recipe calls for baking powder as a leavening agent, you use it because the end product will definitely be light, will definitely be fluffy. So it's very important that you use, when the recipe calls for baking powder, you use, because baking powder makes whatsoever you are baking to be light, to be fluffy, and also it also affects the taste. But when you omit baking powder for a recipe that calls for it, you definitely end up with whatsoever you are baking will definitely be hard, will definitely be dense, and also the taste will be affected.
I think we have come to the end of Mari's Bite Show, and I think I have an understanding on how to bake, and I can enter the kitchen proudly and say I want to bake any type of cake I want or any type of dish. So I hope you also understand better about how to bake. And thank you very much to the CEO of Mari's Bites. And please,
You're welcome.
oh, thank you very much, Ma. And always stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like. Bye.